right. It's wonderful to be at the Women in Cloud Conference in the cloud capital of the world. But cloud services aren't the only thing we have going in this incredible innovation economy. We have a world-class university. We've got great anchor tenants like Microsoft and Amazon. We have committed investors. We obviously have amazing talent. But in my opinion, our secret sauce is coffee. And that's not just because we're so highly caffeinated, but because you can get a cup of coffee with anyone you want or need to meet. But there's an art to the coffee meeting, and done correctly, it can be the foundation of a really meaningful and authentic relationship. So dating back to 2006, I've taken about 1,900 coffee meetings, either a literal or metaphorical latte, where the purpose is to seek or provide some counsel. I've been driven, really, my whole career. I've been entrenched in the startup tech community for about 15 years, and I really have this deep desire to do the most good for the most people. And I've worked in for-profit, nonprofit, government, and academia, and that is absolutely the through line, is how can I make a positive impact? And I suspect that sounds familiar to many of you. So when people ask me for coffee, I want to say yes. However, I'm going to tell you something I've never shared publicly before. I live in daily fear of disappointing people. I'm really worried that when someone asks for that coffee, I'm not going to have the ability to deliver on whatever it is they're looking for. And even if I can, how can I carve out the time to do that? And that really is a tension that many of us as women experience in the workplace, particularly in male-dominated industries, which has been my career for the last 25 years. You kind of pay a tax for being a woman. We're expected to be the connectors and be the coaches on top of everything else that we have to do alongside our male colleagues. But because we want to connect, we want to help, we say yes. And it's really the struggle of how do you balance that with balancing your career, balancing your time, and advocating for yourself. So what I want to do today is to provide some do's and don'ts and really share the perspective both as a mentor and a mentee. Although really my mantra as a mentor is I'm not trying to tell you how to live your life. So let's just call them lessons learned and takeaways. So let me go back to 2005 when I was in grad school at the University of Washington. And my hero, Phyllis Campbell, who at the time was leading the Seattle Foundation, came to speak in one of my classes. And I thought that that was the kind of career that I wanted to pursue. So after she was done speaking in class, I waltzed up to her and said, Ms. Campbell, I really enjoyed your talk. If you could spare 20 minutes, I'd love to buy you a cup of coffee and pick your brain about the development role in the nonprofit world. And she said, first off, call me Phyllis. You're a student, so you're broke, so let me buy the coffee. Great results, so we are off and running. And 14 years later, I still consider her to be a mentor. Now, the reason that she said yes, frankly, is mostly because she's just a truly delightful and generous person. But looking back on that and knowing what I do now, I think fortunately I did a couple of things right when I approached her. So first off, I asked her for advice, not for help. When I'm asking for help, I'm going to reserve that for, like, if I've fallen down a well and I desperately need assistance, right? Asking for help can engender pity, and that's not the foundation of the kind of relationship that I wanted to develop with her. Plus, I can tell you that having been on the receiving end, when someone asks you for advice, they're seeking your expertise, and it feels really good. So secondly, when I approached her, it was time-bound. I asked her for just 20 minutes. It was specific. I wanted to talk about the development role, and I was transparent with my agenda. So in my heart, I wanted to just run up to her and say, Phyllis, you're my hero. Will you please be my mentor? And that might not have gone so well. But what I was able to do is to make it really easy for her to say yes, right? So seek advice, make it time-bound, specific, and transparent. That's what I've taken away from the mentee side. Now, switching gears a little bit, and many of you probably do both. You're a mentor and a mentee. Like I said before, I really try not to tell people what to do. And that's for at least two reasons. One is I think it's so important for all of us to have agency and ownership in our life decisions. That really propels your success and well-being as a human. Secondly, I truly believe that we have the answers within. And as a mentor, it's your job to unlock what those answers are. So for example, let's say you want to treat yourself and go out to dinner, but you can't decide between sushi or Thai food. So you flip a quarter, heads it's sushi, and your visceral reaction is disappointment. But it turns out the quarter is not the boss of you. You have agency, so you go out for Thai food. So my metaphor here is that I want to be the quarter, like be the forcing function that helps you reveal what you truly want inside. And you know, this is reflected with the Techstars Accelerator. If you're familiar with that, I've been a mentor with that program since they launched in Seattle in 2010. The very first thing they tell you in mentor orientation is it's not your company, it's their company. So I really take that to heart. So hundreds and hundreds of coffee meetings later, I could tell you lots of stories about the folks I've had the chance to support, but I really do respect their confidentiality, so I'm not going to share their inner secrets, but I will tell you just a really brief example from the class that I'm teaching. So I teach in the University of Washington in the Technology Management MBA program, a class on entrepreneurship, where the students are charged with coming up with a startup idea and then presenting it to investors on an expo night. So after class last Saturday, a team came up to me and said that they were really struggling to choose between one of two ideas and just wanted me to tell them. So instead, I asked them some probing questions about their business model and then said, all right, like, what are you the most passionate about? And they said, well, you know, each idea got the same amount of votes. So I told a short story. Back in the day, I used to run an angel investment program called the Alliance of Angels, where every month I would screen and interview about 30 companies and select 6 to bring to our screening committee. And then from there, we would pick 3 that we would present to our membership for potential investment. So come time for the screening committee, we present these 6 companies, we go over the pros and cons, and we take a vote. But we don't stop there. When we get the top 3 vote getters, I turn to the committee and say, which one of you is willing to stand up and introduce this company and vouch for them? And if nobody steps forward, we have to go back to the drawing board. So I told the story to my students and said, all right, when you think about idea 1, is there one of you that's going to go to bat and stake your reputation on this startup idea? How about the second idea? Right? So then they talked amongst themselves, figured it out, and I can't wait to see their presentation next week. So the takeaways from that are, 1, please don't tell people what to do, like I'm doing right now. Sorry. So ask lots of questions. 2, as you heard from Melody earlier, telling stories is so powerful. I think that done well, you share a bit of yourself, you establish some credibility, you create that accessibility and vulnerability that really lays the groundwork for an authentic relationship. And the last little piece here is I think that there's a difference between a vote and a vouch. You know, when you're making connections, making a recommendation versus a referral can be a really powerful way to connect people. And I don't know about you, but in 9 out of the 10 coffee meetings that I take, the result is me making an introduction. So I'm going to give you a couple bonus takeaways when it comes to making those introductions. So imagine you've just finished up a really super, coffee or cappuccino meeting with Kathy. At the end of that meeting, you ask her, gosh, would it be helpful for me to introduce you to Isabel? But before you make that introduction, you go and ask Isabel if it's okay to introduce her to Kathy. We call that the double opt-in. If you don't do that, it's a really great way to start with a large relationship network and get to a really small relationship network. So treat those relationships like gold. Sorry, a little water. Sorry. So treat those relationships like gold. Second, and here's just a little tip in terms of guarding your own time, before you even ask Isabel for the chance to connect, I'm a multitasker, thank you. Before you even ask Isabel for that chance to connect with Kathy, ask Kathy for a 2-sentence description that you can go ahead and forward to Isabel. So Isabel has some context for why she should take that meeting. That does a couple things for you. One, it helps you not lose anything in translation when you're, oh my gosh, all the waters. Thank you. So it helps you not losing anything in translation. It also can save you a ton of time because it's really easy just to forward that email and provide your own commentary. The other piece too, and I will tell you with hundreds of coffee meetings under my belt, it's probably only about 65% of the time that I get that forwardable email. And I will tell you for the other 35% of the time, I'm really grateful that I didn't make that connection between Kathy and Isabel and ask Isabel for her insight, because if Kathy didn't follow through with me, chances are she's not going to follow through with Isabel, and Isabel deserves better than that, right? So guard your network like your life. So thinking about the mentor and mentee experience, I think that in closing, I'll say there are really 2 learnings I've had over the last 15 years. And one is that even more than the caffeine, the most important ingredient in a successful coffee meeting is active listening on both sides of the table. And secondly, I will tell you, as a mentor, I have grown and expanded, and taking these meetings with people who are asking me the probing questions has been a forcing function for me to process my own experience. So I am sure I benefit at least as much, if not more, from those meetings. All right, finally, I am delighted to get out of the way and step aside for this amazing panel. But I should tell you that my day job is I am the director of Create 33, which is an entrepreneur center in the heart of Seattle. And our goal, we are single-mindedly focused on creating and accelerating the success of new technology startups. And I am building a dynamic and inclusive community. So please do stop by and see me sometime if you're an entrepreneur or a technology executive. At the very least, I can guarantee you a great cup of coffee. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.